Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, what I'm going to be doing is my March reading wrap up. So as I have done with the past few months, I'm going to start with the physical books first and then go on to the Kindle books that I read this month. I read 8 books in the month of March, so overall not a bad month. I have been quite busy, so I haven't read crazy amounts like I normally would, but I'm still quite happy with that. I'm going to talk you through them all, and that's about it. Let's get into it. So the first physical book that I read in March was Hello Stranger by Catherine Center, and this one is about a girl who is a portrait artist and she has an injury which causes her this thing called face blindness, so she can't see people's faces anymore. It's just a jumbled mess, if that makes sense. So obviously she has some struggles with her career, which we read about in the book, and then she also falls in love during this time in her life, but not with one person, 2 people, or so she thinks. These 2 people turn out to be the same person, and that again causes a whole load of complications for her, and we basically see her navigate her life with this face blindness and how she learns to deal with it and how she overcomes these obstacles and things like that. It's a really good book. I did rate this 4 out of 5 stars, so I did really enjoy it. I do highly recommend this one. This was my first ever Catherine Center book too. I've never read Catherine Center before, but I'm really curious to see what her other books are like now, because like I say, I did really enjoy this one. So this was book 1. The second physical book that I read in the month of March was The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren, and this was a romance. It's basically about this girl, Jess, who's a single mum, and she's just going about her life, bringing her daughter up and trying to do the best she can for her, basically. And her and a friend enter this dating site thing where they have to send their DNA off, and you get a date based on a DNA match, if that makes sense. And she matches with the founder of this company, and she already knows him and she doesn't like him at all. So it's sort of an enemies to lovers type book, and it was a really interesting concept. I did quite enjoy it. There's quite a sciencey element to it, if that's your sort of thing. I did quite enjoy it. I rated this one a 3 out of 5 stars. So yeah, that was book 2. So they were the 2 physical books that I read in March. I have read quite a bit on my Kindle this month, and I also listened to one audiobook on Audible. So the audiobook is the one I'm going to talk about next. And the audiobook I listened to in March was called Two Can Play by Ali Hazelwood. I will put a little cover for you there so you can see it. This one's basically about these game developers who work for rival companies, and they end up having to come together on a retreat because these companies want to work together, and they have history. They don't really like each other, or so they think. It turns out that there's a lot of romantic chemistry between them, and they both actually really like each other and find each other really attractive. This one again was a sort of enemies to lovers type book. It was a short book on Audible. It was about 4.5 hours, I think. It does have a little bit of spice in it, if that's your sort of thing. But yeah, overall, it was a good book, and I rated that one a 3 out of 5 stars. And then finally, I'm going to go on to the Kindle books that I read this month. So the first Kindle book that I read was Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. And basically, what happens is these 2 people meet online, and they both have this thing where every person that they date breaks up with them and then goes off to find their soulmate. So they decide to do this experiment where they start dating each other, then they'll break up, to go and find their soulmate. But there are so many other things that get thrown into the mix. Justin, the male character, ends up having to take custody of his younger siblings during the book. Emma has a very toxic mother, and she comes to upend Emma's life during this book. So yeah, there's quite a lot thrown into it, and obviously they do end up falling in love towards the end, which is really nice. It ends up being a really cute, heartwarming story, which is lovely. So yeah, that's just for the summer. I rated that one a 4 out of 5 stars, so quite high again. I did really enjoy it. It was one of my favourite books this month. The next book I'm going to talk about is Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. So this one follows Bree, who moves to this town, and in this town she meets this boy called Archer, but he can't talk, he communicates via sign language, and he's sort of a bit of a social outcast, to be honest. He doesn't really go out into the community. He stays within his own land and only goes out when he really needs to. I don't know how to explain it. He's the outcast of the town. That's the best way I can say it, I think. But yeah, Bree spends a lot of time getting to know him. She doesn't write him off as quickly as everybody else does. She's patient with him and she's caring and keeps turning up to check on him and things like that. And they develop a romance which ends up being really heartwarming. And it was honestly my favourite book of last month. I rated it 5 stars. It was absolutely brilliant. I read it in 2 days, I think. I absolutely loved it. And I really enjoyed Mia Sheridan's writing. I'd never read any Mia Sheridan books before this. And I'm really excited to dive more into her work. But yeah, Archer's Voice was absolutely amazing and I do highly recommend it. Which leads me then onto book 6, which is Travis by Mia Sheridan, and this is the sequel to Archer's Voice, and it follows another character, Travis, who we find out in the first book is Archer's half brother, and it's basically his journey of self discovery and him falling in love and things like that. Because in the first book, he's made out to be this quite questionable character, if that makes sense. He's made out to be the bad guy, but then in Travis, we find out that he has his reasons and he's not all bad and he's not as bad as he's made out to be, if that makes sense. And it's basically, again, a nice, heartwarming story. I didn't enjoy this one as much as the first one. I rated this one a 3 out of 5 stars, but it was still really good and I'm really looking forward to the third book in the series, Falling for Gage, which I will be reading soon. And it will be in a video, hopefully. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. So yeah, that was book 6. For book 7, I read I Bet You'd Look Good in a Coffin by Katie Brent, which is the second book in the Kitty Collins series. I really like Katie Brent's books because they're quite dark but witty at the same time, if that makes sense. She writes dark books but in a comedic way, and I really like that. So Kitty Collins, the main character, she is basically this massive feminist, but she takes it to the next level. She goes out and gets rid of, let's just say, all the horrible men in the world, men that have hurt women, men that stand against women, and people like that. She hates it. She goes out and she rids the world of these people. But Katie Brent writes these in a way, like I say, that it's just so funny. She's just such a good writer, and the books end up being really twisty as well. There's things you don't see coming, which I love. I really have enjoyed this duology, and I will be reading more Katie Brent in the future. I rated this one a 4 stars, and like I say, I love Katie Brent's writing. I will be reading more of her stuff in the near future, so if you haven't read any of her stuff yet, I do highly recommend her. The last book I will be talking about is Anxious People by Fredrik Backman. This one was about this policeman and his son, who's also a policeman, and they're finding out what happened at this hostage in a flat that was up for sale, and it was a viewing, and it's basically them interviewing the different characters and the backstories of the different characters. And there's some comedic parts, but also some really dark parts. I did quite enjoy this. I rated it a 3 out of 5 stars, but I do highly recommend reading trigger warnings if you are going to go into this, because like I say, it does touch on some dark topics. But I like Frederick Backman's writing anyway. I read A Man Called Ove last year and really enjoyed it, so I was expecting to enjoy this one too, which I did. It is in dual timeline as well. You get points of view from the hostage and then from after the hostage. So you see it from both perspectives. You get the individual people's accounts, which is also good. I did quite enjoy that one. So yeah, they are all the books that I read in March. I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did enjoy it, please like, comment and subscribe underneath, and I will see you all again next week.